Good morning to you, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here in Santa Monica, California, United States. Today's sharing directed to Senior General Aung Hlaing, the current dictator-instigator of Burma's military coup d'etat that is currently not sweeping Myanmar, but being courageously confronted by the people of Myanmar. You are losing, sir. And I'm inviting you today, man to man, to consider what I'm going to say to you as not an enemy of yours, but as a friend of your people. Not just those Buddhists, but the Karen, the Kachin, the Shan, the Rakhines, the Rohingya, the 135 different ethnicities in your country, sir, and the 54 million people unifying at this very moment in a collective cry, scream, celebration of democracy. You, sir, have a gifted opportunity in your hands and in your heart if you had the courage, the moral, ethical, spiritual, mindful intelligence to feel it. To spend today's talk addressing your mind, not as enemy, as a friend of democracy, as a relative of yours in Dhamma, as a lover of freedom and for the future of life and for the sanctity of all beings. People in power, it's been my experience, very few people near to them ever tell you the truth. You are often in your position based on collusion and complicity by cronies, by sycophants, and people that are willing to tell you things primarily for their own need, for their own greed, for their own profit, for their own privilege. Welcome to America, right? I'm an American citizen. I know that from my own history and my own country, that politics are utterly corrupt based on the primacy of profit over people. It's going to be the death of the human species based upon that misguided meme, the death of nature over money. Sir, you have a gifted, unthinkably gifted opportunity in your hands. I know you don't see that because you're threatening your own people, that if you continue to come out, 1 million people plus have taken to the streets and villages in Myanmar yesterday. They're going to continue to come out. It's just beginning. And what's your response? If you come out, we're going to kill you. How weak, how pathetic, how impotent a response that is to you, sir. Why? I know you're a military man. I come from a military country, a military family, veterans of World War II that stopped Hitler. And the world over right now, they're comparing you to a tyrant, to a dictator, to a lethal sociopath. These are criminally insane labels. And you stand and sit and walk and talk and guide your life and your country from behind the mansion and the bars and the guns and Naypyidaw. Very vulnerable there. You have nowhere to go at this point, and that must be a problem. I want to address that problem for you, sir, and give you a way out. Not a threat, but as someone who loves Myanmar, your people, your country, and ultimately, as a son of the Buddha, you too as a son of the Buddha, I want to relate to you Dhamma to Dhamma, man to man, relative to democracy, to freedom, and to the preservation and the sanctity of universal human rights. Let me encourage anyone who's listening or who does listen to this, please, in your own humble activist way. Share this video worldwide. Get it into the country of Myanmar. Get it to Senior General Ming online. Get it to President Biden. Get it to the prime ministers. Get it to people in power. And hear how a friend of Myanmar speaks directly to the senior general. I'm not interested in sanctions or taking your money or having countries, write their congressperson. I could give a damn about that. What I care about is freedom, democracy, the preservation of the Sasana, the Sangha, the Dhamma, and the multiplicity of the cultures in your precious country. I am a friend of Burma, a friend of democracy, a friend of Aung San Suu Kyi, U Tin U Win Tin, U Chi Mong, U Win Tain, Sera U Pandita, Mahasi Sera, the former first Prime Minister U Nu. I lived in his room at the Mahasi Thatana Yekta. I knew him. I know his family. I am a relative of your country. Although I'm an American, I speak to you man to man, Dhamma to Dhamma, Senior General. No one wants to talk to you directly. Most people, near people in power, are sycophants. They're complicit. And you, sir, at the moment, strike me as being driven by moha, delusion, driven by lobha, greed, and driven by fear and habit and obedience to your own cognitive inability to understand the virtues of dana, generosity, sila, ethical courage, and bhavana, the awakening of beautiful states of mind that support the people. Look around right now through the media, through television, through your channels. Your entire country has unified, something that you and the Thamada have not been able to accomplish post-independence in the 40s. In a matter of 3 weeks, your country, non-violently except through you, sir, have unified the Kachins, the Shans, the Mons, the Rakhine, even the Rohingya, political prisoners, the Buddhists, the atheists, the Jews, the Catholics, the Christians, the Koreans. They're all in unity and basically saying, they don't want your death, sir. You want their death. That's misguided. But you don't see it. Moha, delusion, has the capacity to blind us from reality, but we still see through the lens of stupidity, and we make reality wrong. You are misguided, sir, and you're in a hallucination, a delusion, an illusion. It's a bad movie, and you're telling the people, if you continue to stand for freedom, peace, Dhamma, Catholicism, liberty, and universality of human rights, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to order people to kill you. That is wrong. These are your children. These are your wife. These are your family. Sir, get it. Get a hold of your mind. I'm speaking to you man to man. Let this video circulate worldwide into the inbox throughout Myanmar. Listen, sir, no one's going to talk to you this way. You are the head of a global family, a national family. You're a senior general. You have responsibilities to noble leadership. You have a gifted opportunity. Let me just stop here for a minute. Why am I speaking this way? I have a long history with your country. I'm a son of the Buddha, a son of the Sangha. You are a brother in Dhamma. I went there in 1997. I ordained with Mahasi Sera in New York and flew back with him. And I was granted a long-term visa by the dictator Ne Win. I stayed in the country. I was able to look at my own mind for the first time without the veneer and the prejudice and the biases of my culture, my fear, and the monks at the Mahasi Thatana Yekta gifted me with their wisdom, with their patience. I was a brash, young American, and I could not believe I belonged to a family, an ancient lineage of dana, sila, bhavana, in your gifted country of Myanmar. I come to you as a man, as a brother, a lover of your people. And I know deep down in your heart, sir, you too love your country, but you're going about leadership in a misguided way. No one's going to talk to you that way. You're not even going to ask the question to your wife, am I doing the wrong thing? If she were wise, if she had moral courage, she would say, my dear husband, it is deluded what you're doing. And if you had the moral, ethical, hiri and otapa, the conscience and the dignity of the people of your country, you would go, oh my God, I can make good on a wrong. I was thrown out of the country numerous times by various dictators. It was a heartbreak to be removed from my family. But eventually in 1988, we know what happened. This is the Second Great Coming. Thousands of people were killed at close range, a tragedy around the world. It's not forgotten. 32 years later, here we are again. I've come into the country numerous times. I was blacklisted for 17 years based upon my association with Aung San Suu Kyi and U Tin Oo, the general of the army, a senior to you, sir, the son of Ne Win. U Chi Mung, one of my mentors and dearest friends who passed away, who I dearly loved, told me so much about the mentality of the very institution, the Thamada, the military that you right now are the senior general of, that you were a junior to. U Chi Mung was a genius who understood the depths of indoctrination through the delusion of dictatorship, and he abandoned that, just like my friend U Win Tain did, a senior to you, sir. Why did these men in uniform abandon dictatorship and you now have stood firm within that old, outmoded paradigm of domination through violence? It's dead. You've got to get it. You are in a position right now here in California on February 22nd, 2021, to get this in your heart and head. Seda U Pandita, my Dhamma teacher, my meditation teacher, after the Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw passed away. My brother, my teacher, my ally, we ate meals together. I took walks with him. He brought me into the life of the sasana as a young son of the Buddha. He gifted me with dana, with robes, with medicines. I almost died in Burma, but it was the people of your country that supported me through the darkest and difficult times physically. But I always felt cared for in my heart. Your people are a gift to the planet, and you're saying, we will kill you if you continue to be beautiful. Sir, that's delusion. You must stop and seize the opportunity, just like the Buddha, when Angulimala looked at him and said, Buddha, I want to kill you. Stop. And the Buddha turns around and says, Angulimala, I have stopped. It's you who have not stopped. Your fear, your moha, your greed. I'm repeating things to you that you learned in kindergarten, but you're not able to hear it today because no one wants to tell you, stop. The world is mamsy-pamsying around with economic sanctions and ridicule and comments, and yet China and Russia are still in your pocket and you are in their pocket. No one's really doing anything to stand up to you and talk to you, and you think you can get away with this tyranny? You can't. Your people are speaking. They're going to continue. They've gotten a taste of democracy. They've gotten a taste of freedom, and they refuse to be cowed by your threats of violence. Stop. Just like Angulimala did. Seda U Pandita, before he passed away in 2016, on his own behest, I spent 9 nights with him. He was older, 95. And we talked about the Dhamma, about politics, about the role of leadership within dictatorship, and mindfulness and mindful intelligence, spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, the power of conscience, the role of hiri and ottappa, Dhamma culture, how to transform dictatorship out of the fabric of a culture. Sir, that book exists. It's called Wisdom for the World, Dhamma Advice to the People of My Country. I advise you, sir, get that book, have it translated into Burmese, study the words of one of the greatest cognitive, psychological Dhamma savants and giants in the history of Myanmar, the Venerable Seda U Pandita, who loved the people, who loved even the Thamada, who loved you, who loves the history of freedom. Read that book. It's short. Wisdom for the World, Dhamma Advice to Senior General Ming Aung Hlaing, and to the Thamada, and to the police. Wake up. It's a brilliant book to understand the absolute necessity of nurturing our own dana, our sila, our bhavana, understanding in the absence of hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral regret, human beings will do anything without fear, without shame, without fear of blame by the wise. Look at you, sir. The freedom-loving people of your country are standing up, chanting in celebration. We want democracy. We refuse to be cowed by the gun. And your response, if you continue to come out and celebrate freedom, to love of our country, I'm going to kill you. That's the mindset of a murderer, not a general. General Aung San, a dignified human being who started the Thamada, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's father, created a dignified military. Sir, you are blemishing the military in Burma forever. But right now you have a chance to redeem yourself. I'm wondering today, here I am in Los Angeles, what would I say if you invited me into your own office in Naypyidaw? I'm taking the liberty to do that. I'd say, sir, if I were you, I'd be concerned. Well, maybe these would be the questions I'd be asking myself. What is the right thing to do here by my people if I were the leader of a country? Now, mind you, you've imprisoned everyone who was elected. The civilian government has been eradicated at the moment. You've taken all the various power sources, all the various roles, and replaced them with military robots. You've incarcerated the country, but they refuse to cower to your dictative, no more than 5 people can congregate, or it's a crime against the dictator. The world is watching. The world is slow to respond. I would not be surprised that soon President Biden will snap out of his coma and send the Nimitz or the Theodore Roosevelt attack group helicopters and jets and the aircraft carriers and destroyers to the Andaman Sea and park there, feed the people, fund the people, and show moral and military support. And if you continue to kill like you did in 1988, they will attack to stop you and the onslaught of China and Premier Xi Jinping and his quest for a Belt and Road Initiative to conquer the world. And Burma too. Burma will not become the next Tibet, sir. The world will stop. And you have a chance, sir, to stop before you're stopped. What are the questions I'd be asking? What's best for my people now, for the future? What's best for my military now, in the future? What's best for my family, my friends, now, in the future? What's best for me now, in the future, and as a Buddhist, your next life? What's best for my people? What's best for the military? What's best for my family, my associates and friends? What's best for my wife and my son? Where you have the deepest bond and commitment to do what's right. What's best? What's best for me? What's best for my future in this life? You're only 65, barely. You have a chance here, post-military, to rise into your Dhamma life. You have an Ashoka moment. Study the King Ashoka from ancient India. A sorrowless king who mercilessly slaughtered people in the name of an ideology that he didn't even be aware of, called dictatorship and tyranny and power, domination over. But when he visited insane prison at that time, the gulag, the torture chambers, he had a crisis of conscience. This is what I'm doing? All in the name of power? And broke, cracked open. And there was redemption, a realization. The beauty of Dhamma. You, sir, are poised for the possibility of the highest honor that Dhamma offers, redemption. You, sir, have it right in your hand right here, in the third week of this military coup, to turn it down, turn it off, and to do your Ashoka. I'm going to close here with a final story that I thought of this morning, that you know probably very well. Buddhist to Buddhist. It's called the Kuti Sutta. Let it in. Read it in the Pali language, or have one of the monks read it to you. Find the Burmese translation, the Kuti Sutta. I think it's in the Udana, short section of discourses in the Sutta Nikaya. The story of the leper. It reminded me of you. This leper at the time of the Buddha lived a wretched life. Poor, shunned, dirty, diseased. I don't want to shame people with disease or with leprosy or anything, but Kuti had a very tragic life according to this sutta. You know, just pause with me, sir. I've been all throughout your country. I was recently out in the outer districts of Yangon, near Hlaing, 250,000 people living in abject poverty. Well, you and your family and your associates and generals and cronies live in unthinkable opulence. It's staggering, the disparity of wealth in your country in the hands of cronies and the military. There's something so wrong about that. But Kuti the leper was probably someone, if you could imagine it, living out in Hlaing. And even in Hlaing, where there's poverty, he was shunned by these people. There was something about him that people didn't like, and they had no compassion or mercy for his illness, his disease, his leprosy. He could barely feed himself with scraps that were thrown in the mud. He could not distinguish between food and excrement because it was not even given to him. People didn't want to get close to him. Imagine that kind of life. It exists. Hlaing exists. These people are born into these circumstances, just like you and just like me. Cause and effect. Kamma and vipaka. Paticca samuppada. The law of dependent origination. Lokiya Dhamma. 31 planes of existence. Humans, apaya, hell world, denizens, deities, devas, brahmas. We live in this multi-complex of physical and cognitive realities, all intersecting based upon laws, conditions. Nothing is by chance, sir. Where you are today, where I am today, could be very different tomorrow, in this life and in a future life. We know that. Kuti, it said in this discourse, saw a large congregation of monks and nuns sitting in the forest with the Buddha sitting in meditation. Imagine that. A very powerful moment, a powerful scene for me to feel the radiance and just the purity of nuns and monks sitting deep in a silent engagement and a responsibility to their own mind and heart, a reverence for Dhamma in action through silence, in mindful engagement of their mind and body in the flow of life. If you've meditated, you know that. Your country is a gift to the world in bringing forth the ancient teachings of meditation. Your country is a treasure. It's a ruby in this cosmos, and you're treated like excrement. Kuti sees the Buddha, and there's some deep intuitive recognition. Call it an epiphany, an awakening, a heavenly messenger, something that was nurtured in an ancient lifetime, a resonance where he feels an alignment to this man. He doesn't know who he is. Redemption, the beauty of Dhamma. Angulimala, I have stopped. It's you who haven't stopped. Redemption. You have a gift, sir, the Ashoka redemption, the Kuti redemption. And the Buddha, through his Abhinya, it said in this short discourse, felt the cognitive fabric of this shared space and looked into the heart and mind and the history of Kuti and saw that Kuti had parami thikamade, states of excellence deep in the ecosystem of his own namarupa, his own mind. The seeds of awakening were there in Kuti. The Buddha saw that. No doubt if Maitreya and Tusita, the next Buddha, were looking at you, sir, and no doubt he probably is, or she, in feeling your own history and looking at your own process, your parami in convulsion with your delusion, wondering what you will do with your own mind and process. The questions that I would be asking: what's best for my people? What's best for the Dhammadha? What's best for my family? What's best for me now and in the future? And the Buddha saw Kuti's potential to awaken. And rather than address all the nuns and monks in the gathering, it said in this discourse, the Buddha spoke specifically to Kuti, talking about the virtues of generosity. When I first went to your country, sir, I live in a country of greed. There are beautiful people here in America, but primarily it's competitive, it's capitalistic, it's greedy, profit-driven, the death of nature. Very few people really give as a matter of course. What you have is your status, not your heart, your gold, your ruby, your diamond. Your country introduced me to the beauty of the ruby heart. You're treating that heart like excrement, sir. You're treating your people like enemies. You're telling them you want to kill them. That's wrong. I'm speaking to you as a man, Senior General Ming Online. No one's going